Amen. Thank you. So, Lipscomb, I've got to tell you, I'm really excited to be here. I've heard about this for a long time. I've heard about you guys. I got to say this, I've not been on this campus a lot, but anyway, I was talking to Nate and some of the people here about the student body, and they said, we're very unique. And I said, that's a big word for a Texan. I said, what does that mean? They said, well, we're very diverse. And I said, what's that mean? They said, well, we're a bunch of funny critters. And I said, what kind of funny critters we got? So they started telling me about a lot of you guys. And I can't remember your names, but they were talking about just kind of all the unusual people that are drifting in here from all over the country. And they said, you know, at Lipscomb, we've got apple pie bakers, we got movers and shakers, we got blondes and brunettes and dive bottle breakers, we got California dreamers and horror show screamers and doodlers and dunkers and some straight A's and some flunkers. And they said, we got entertainment singers and planners and wingers and fencers and rollers and gutter ball bowlers and goers and starters and slow pokes and darters. And they said we got handkerchief users and tissue abusers and interstate bikers and wilderness hikers and joggers and anglers. And you wear Levi's and Wranglers and kissers and tellers and friends of the fellers and lovers and fighters and fingernail biters. And they said we got muscle men bowed up and hunters that load up and newspaper readers and drivers and speeders. And they said we got out-of-sight honeys and shy ones and funnies and people with answers and some crazy break dancers and quivering chunkers and some basketball slam dunkers and readers and thinkers and knotted drop drinkers and soda straw slurpers and bad-mannered burpers and teasers and criers and high-rolling flyers. And they said we got uncles and sisters and passive resistors and virtuous foxes and real Goldilockses and weirdos and crazies and slowpokes and lazies and xylophone pickers and popsicle lickers and yawners and nappers and Nate one-handicappers and zipper your lippers and tightwads and tippers. That's all I can remember. But anyway, it's good to be with you guys. Y'all are definitely a bunch of funny critters. So I hope I meet every one of y'all he was telling me about and get a name with who you are. But so I got to tell you, the first time I hear about Lipscomb, it was years ago. I'm from Texas. Any other Texans out there by any chance? Okay, good. Texans are always noisy, so most of them aren't even from Texas. They just wanted to scream today. But anyway, so I'm from Texas. I played in Dallas, and we're playing the University of Tennessee one day. And I just got to tell you guys, I hate orange. I just absolutely hate orange. They wear orange because over there in Knoxville because you can go hunting on Friday, play football on Saturday, pick up trash on the highway on Sunday, and never change clothes. Anyway, orange is a great color. Anyway, so we're playing Tennessee, and I've just got to tell you, I hate to admit it, but we got killed. I mean, we just got smoked. And so after the game was over, I mean, it was 28-0. I still remember the score. I was playing across from an All-American, and I pretty much got destroyed. But anyway, I'll never forget that day. So after the game's over, my buddies and I, going back out of the stadium, we're trying to get on the bus, and there's 80,000 incredibly crazy immoral. No, yeah, they're just wild people. Anyway, so this guy comes up to me and he's like, have you ever been somewhere that somebody looks at you like they know who you are, you've never seen him before, it feels really awkward, you're on you're out here on the sidewalk, you're at the mall, and they keep looking at you. And you don't know who they are. And finally, so as this happening, this guy's looking at me. I'm with four of my buddies, and we're trying to get on the bus, get back to Dallas, get in the whirlpool, and soak our injuries. And finally, he just said, buddy, he said, don't I know you? And I said, I don't think so. And he said, have you ever been to Lipscomb, in Nashville? And I said, well, you know what? I've been around, Nashville and stuff, but I can't remember. Does anybody else play football? Does anybody understand? Play football? Raise your hand. If you played football, raise your hand. Anybody? Nobody ever played football, ever? No, for real, guys, raise your hand if you played football. Duh, get it up. Yeah, well, football players aren't very smart. And so I don't know if you're born that way or you just get hit in the head a lot, but anyway, I can't remember much. But moms want to know everything, right? Anybody have a mom that wants to know everything? You come home, they want to know details. So mom makes me write everything down and carry it around in a little book when I was in high school or college because she always wants to know stuff. So the guy goes, have you ever been to Lipscomb in Nashville? And I said, I don't remember, let me check. So I just pulled my book out, and I kind of have my book kind of divided up in categories because mom wants to know stuff. So I looked under places that I've been. It's kind of the first category in my book. And I looked under L for Lipscomb. I play interior lineman, but I can actually spell. It was there, and I said, buddy, as a matter of fact, I have nice university. I've written that down, right? I mean, it is. I wrote that down. And this was back when I was and he said, when you were there, did you meet a girl named Sylvia Mansfield? And I said, I don't remember. Let me check. So I just pulled my book back out. And the next category in my book is girls that I've met. And so I looked under M for Mansfield, S for Sylvia. And there she was. And I don't know if maybe she's still around. I don't know. Anyway, so I said, as a matter of fact, I did. nice girl, too. I wrote that down. So I put my book back, and I'm trying to get away from this big guy. And he said, can I ask you another question? And I said, sure, free country. He said, did you have a date with her? And I said, I don't remember. Let me check. Anyway, so I just pulled my book back out, and the next category in my book is girls that I've dated, and I looked at her in from Mansfield, Esther Sylvia, and there she was. And I said, yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I did. Nice date, too. Anyway, that's all I can remember. So I just put it back, and then I'm trying to leave. And this guy, y'all, his face gets really intense, and he looks like he wants to fight. And he kind of gets angry, and he grabs him by the arm, and he said, can I ask you another question? And I said, sure, fire away. And he said, did you kiss her on that date? And I said, I don't remember. Let me check. So anyway, I get my book back out, and the next category in my book is, girls that I've kissed, and, small list. Anyway, if y'all are okay with that, Chapel. But anyway, so I look on her in from Mansfield, Esther Sylvia. It wasn't too hard to find. Anyway, there she was. And I said, as a matter of fact, I did. And before I could say anything about that, because I always write down stuff, because Mom was so, and the guy said, I don't like that. And I said, really? And he said, I married her when she graduated. And he said, you little Texan, he said, you kissed her. And he said, I don't like that. And y'all, football players, we may not be very smart, but we're quick thinkers. And so I quickly thought, I'm going to get hit again and die in the parking lot of this stadium. Or I'm going to have to come up with, so the next category in my book is likes and dislikes. And everything I like, I put on the right side, everything I dislike on the left side. And he kept saying, I don't like that. And I looked down on the dislikes, and I found her name. And I said, buddy, that's funny. I didn't like it either. Anyway, so that actually didn't totally happen, although we did get smeared at Tennessee. And I'm sorry to tell you guys that. But I've heard about this campus for years, and I'm thrilled to death to be here. But I had a bad day at Knoxville. And speaking of bad days, a friend of mine just went to work for Peace Corps. And I was talking about bad days. I was looking at the Peace Corps manual of people who are going down to work for the Peace Corps down in the South American region of the Amazon River. And in the middle of the training manual is this page, and it says, what to do if attacked by an anaconda. Now, I'm excited about Peace Corps, and I'm excited about the Amazon, but I don't know if I want to go there or not. I'm reading this thing just a while ago, and it says, what to do if attacked by an anaconda. Picture yourself doing some really sweet social work down in South America, and you get to this page in the book. I mean, I'm afraid of snakes that are like 1 foot long. It says, this is the largest snake in the world. He's up to 35 feet in length, weighing 300 to 400 pounds. I'm like, sign me up. I can't wait. But here's what happens. It says, rule 1, lay flat on ground. Do not run. Snake is faster than you are. Really? Let's sign up today. All right, rule 2. It says, put your feet tightly together and your hands snugly by your side. Like make yourself a fishing lure. This is great. Rule 3, snake will begin to examine you and crawl across your body. Anybody want to sign up? Rule 4, snake will begin to suck you into his mouth from the feet in first, always from the feet in first. Do not panic. This will take a long time. Rule 5, when snake's mouth gets up to your waist, slowly and with as little movement as possible, reach down and unbuckle your knife from the scabbard. Rule 6, take knife, insert into side of snake's jaw, ripping upward suddenly, severing snake's head. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not interested in going down to the Amazon. Rule 7, in this order, be sure your knife is sharp. Can you picture it? Oh, sorry, I forgot that one. Bring me my whetstone. Rule 8, be sure you have your knife. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there are bad days. I had a bad day in Knoxville. That would be a bad day. Let me tell you a bad day for 2 Vanderbilt students. True story. I'm doing a presentation over at Vanderbilt. And we're with their FCA, and we're talking to these athletes about Kanakuk, about these sports camps. And then I get on the airplane to fly back to Missouri. And so there's this Vanderbilt guy sitting right across the aisle from me, true story, and right in front of him is a Vanderbilt female student. And so you know what, they're bored, and so you know what, I just get my New Testament out and do what I like to do. And I just started sharing with them the greatest story that's ever been told, the greatest life that's ever been lived, and how they can, how this guy can have a relationship with the greatest man who ever lived. And he starts listening to me, and then the girl starts listening to me, and I have a lot of fun no matter where we are, what we're doing. And then they realize that they've never met before. And so she becomes interested in him, true story, and he becomes interested in her, and all of a sudden this cool little love letter that I'm carrying in my pocket, greatest love letter ever written, all of a sudden they don't care about this love letter. You know, she's in Tower A, he's in Tower B, and they start flirting, and I'm watching this, and I'm just thinking, okay, God, do something cool. True story. We're about to go into Lambert Airport in St. Louis, and all of a sudden something happens to the plane, and the plane drops like 5,000 feet. It's never happened to me before flying commercially. And I mean, everybody goes up in the air, and everything in your lap is up in the air. It's like laying there in space, like you're on a moon mission or something like that. And everybody thinks we're going to crash. And all I'm thinking is, God, that was cool. And all of a sudden, Tower A and Tower B don't matter. I mean, all of a sudden, in one moment in time, that guy doesn't care that that's the cutest girl at Vanderbilt. She doesn't care that he's the cutest boy in Tower B. All of a sudden, all they care about is that. And the plane levels out right before we land, and those two kids are going, can you tell me the rest of that story now? And so as the plane's going in, I'll lead those two Vanderbilt students in prayer. It was one of the most exciting times of my life. And I came here today to ask you, what would you do if you were in that airplane and instead of falling 5,000 feet out of the sky, it fell 35,000 feet out of the sky? I've been there. What would you do? What would you be thinking? What would you be wanting to fix or change in your life? We're flying back from Washington, D.C. I'm doing an event in D.C. And we're flying back in a private plane, a 6-seat plane. There's some students in the plane with me. And all of a sudden, I look out the window, and gasoline or jet fuel is coming out of the engine. And I tap the pilot on the shoulder, and I go, hey, buddy, just in case you haven't noticed, look out there. And it's one thing to have fuel in the plane. It's another thing to have fuel floating out of the plane. The gas gauge is going just like this. And I watch the reaction of these students in the plane as this plane starts diving into Indianapolis. And obviously, we got the plane on the ground. But what would you do if you were there? What would that be like for you? It happened to me about 12 summers ago. I was at our sports camps training our football athletes. And we were on the field, and I was training my youngest son. And you know, it happens at a moment in life that you never believe it's going to happen. It happens on university campuses every year. It happens in high school. You know, we call them rogue winds. A rogue wind is a wind that blows mysteriously. And you're out on the ocean in a sailboat. And from out of nowhere, the wind it comes up, and it's mysterious, and it's lethal. And it's sinister, and it's meant to kill. And all of a sudden, your boat's upside down, and people are drowning everywhere. So what do you do when the rogue wind blows in your life? I think probably in the university days, the rogue wind probably blows more often than any other time in your life. Some of the most challenging days in my life in the university. Well, a rogue wind blew for me 12 summers ago when I was on the football field, and Cooper, my youngest son, had asked me to be his personal trainer. And to make a long story short, we were training together that summer, running together after every practice. And I'm noticing all these bruises on the backs of my legs. And I went into the doctor on a nighttime visit and got a blood test. And the doctor walks up to the football field the last day of practice with the blood test 3 days after I'd taken the test. And he takes me down to his car. And he said, hey, we need to talk. And I said, why are you looking like that? Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? And he said, Joe, you've got leukemia. You've got blood cancer. And I said to him, buddy, am I dying? And he couldn't even get it out of his mouth. I've been married to my little homecoming queen my Debbie Jo for 30 years or so, and probably more in love than I've ever been in love in my life, raising 4 kids. Probably met like some of you, just sailing through, just having the greatest possible imaginable life I could ever dream of. And all of a sudden, I'm dying of leukemia. It happens just like that. It's a rogue wind. It's sinister. It comes from out of nowhere. You know, you get a phone call, your mom's sick. You get a phone call from a doctor you never thought you would get. And the rogue wind blows in your life. What do you do when the storm blows? You know, I ran down to Cooper. He's packing his car for college, my youngest son. And I throw my arms around that kid, and I said, Cooper, Pops is dying of cancer. I've got leukemia. He said, Dad, have you told Mom? And I'm like, Cooper, I can't tell your mom. Good night. I love that girl more than I love life. She's lost her dad. She's lost her stepdad. How do I tell her that, you know, that I'm going to check out on her? I felt like I was cheating her, you guys. It was awful. I found my little bride in their house, and we just kind of crumbled the floor and wept in each other's arms. The rogue wind blows when you least expect it in life. We go to Mayo Clinic. The doctors take the bone marrow and all that stuff, and basically he just comes out and he says, you know what? You know, you need to get your house ready. You need to get your house in order. You need to write your will. I remember little Courtney was up in Seattle, my youngest daughter, and I knew if Courtney heard about it, she would just completely freak out. My little girls and I are so incredibly close. Knowing I'd have to fly to Seattle before the rumor mill hit Seattle. How would I tell Jamie? How would I tell Brady? So I go to that little hotel room lobby that night and kiss Debbie Jo goodnight, pray for that precious little bride of mine. And I get on my knees, and I don't know what you're going to do the last thing before you die. But for me, it was very dark and lonely in that hotel room, and I looked up in the darkness of that hotel room, and I had one question. You know, broken and humble and sad and crying my eyes out and saying goodbye to Debbie Jo. And I just said, God, will you be there? Will you be there? I felt like I was falling off this little bitty platform called life that goes by just like that. I just want to know if someone's going to be there. And I closed my eyes, you guys, and he painted the most beautiful picture for me I've ever seen in my life. I was in Cairo, Egypt in November, and I was building this cross, and we're going to build tonight for 14,000 Muslims, and it's just crazy, but it happens all over the Middle East. They see the same dream I saw that night in that hotel. All over the Muslim world, they're seeing the same dream. Jesus comes up to me, so help me, it was him, and he comes up and he scoops me in his arms. It's like I'm a little bitty kid, and he's my dad, and he puts my head in his shoulder, and he carries me across the goal line into this race that I cannot finish by myself, and he carries me into the end zone of eternity. And he looks me in the eyes like the most loving dad I've ever felt, hugged me in my life. And he said, Joe, will I be there? I'm your dad. Will I be there? I'll carry you across the finish line. At the end of the race, I will carry you. In Hebrews, you've read the verse a million times, this precious little love letter. It says, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every encumbrance. Let us also lay aside every encumbrance. God, America, the encumbrances are just countless, aren't they? Just the stuff, the sin that just gets all over us. It's like it's almost impossible, it seems like, just to walk towards the goal that you and I believe in. You know, psychologists say that you are three people. And when you're in that hotel room and the rogue wind is blowing in your life, or all of a sudden you get bone cancer, or stuff happens that you never expected to happen, all of a sudden you're one of three people. Because until you're there, you're your public self. Psychologists say your public self is the self that everybody knows. Your public self is who your friends see in your dormitory or in your sports team or in your fraternity or sorority. But then there's your private self. You know, your private self is the person that only your boyfriend knows. It's the person that only your girlfriend knows. It's the person that only your husband or your wife knows. But then they say there's another self. And the self that very few people know is your personal self. You know, your personal self is that person inside of you that shows up when the rogue wind blows. You know, guys, your personal self is the guy that when you're a dad and you have a 13-year-old son, and I look at that 13-year-old son of yours and I say, tell me about your dad. And he begins to tell me about his father. He goes, oh, heck, Dad hides porn in the bathroom. You know, Dad's unfaithful to Mom. You know, Dad doesn't really believe what he says he believes. We go to church on Sunday, but you ought to know my real dad. That's where our angry kids show up. You know, your personal self is the one that when you walk down that aisle and your husband lifts that veil and he looks deeply into your green eyes or your brown eyes, your blue eyes, and he sees this person way down deep behind what he's seen when you've been dating, behind what he's seen when the romance has been beautiful and the candle was lit. Your personal self is the innermost person of your heart, is the person that shows up when you meet Jesus face to face, when the road wind blows in your life. You know, when you're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, Hebrews says, you know what that means, y'all? Because really and truly in this historic moment that we're kind of in today in this chapel, you know what it means? It means this little boy was playing college football, and he was a great kid, but he wasn't very big. He was small, he was slow. He never played it down, but he never missed a practice. His final week, his father dies, and he goes off to the funeral on Tuesday. He comes back on Saturday. He says, Coach, he goes, I know I've never been good enough to play for you. But he says, I wonder if today you put me in just one play, the last play my senior year. So the coach feels sorry for him, so he puts him in on the kickoff, kind of a Rudy moment. And the kid runs down the field. The coach is shocked when the kid hits the quarterback on the 6-yard line, the running back, and he drops him on the 6-yard line. Kid beat everybody down the field. The coach leaves him in. He plays linebacker, weighs about 175 pounds. He plays play after play. He forces punts, he makes 16 tackles that day. They carry him in the locker room. He's like the hero of the game. The coach walks up to him in the locker room, and he says, I've never seen you play like that. What happened today? And the kid's a humble kid, and he's kind of shuffling on the ground at his feet. He can't believe what's just happened in his life. Greatest game ever. And he said, Coach, I don't know if you know it, but my father died this week. And the coach said, yeah, we actually sent flowers to the funeral. He said, Coach, I don't know if you know it or not, but my daddy was blind his whole life. Coach goes, yeah. He said, I knew that. He said, I used to watch you lead him around campus when you come to visit. He said, Coach, this is the first game my daddy's ever seen me play. Because it's really not your public self that matters when you have your first child and that child looks up in your eyes to begin to be inspired for the person that little child's going to grow up to be. It's not your public self that everybody sees that matters when the road wind blows. It's that personal self. It's the bottom of your heart that shows up. And I think God called me today into this room today with you. I've been so looking forward to this. I can't tell you, I've been looking forward to this. To ask me, what is it in your life, that personal self, that you wish wasn't sitting there in your heart? What is it inside your life that you don't want to walk down that aisle? What is it in your personal life that you don't want her to see really when she really gets to know you? What is in your personal self that when your boy is 13, and I look at that boy and I say, tell me about your dad. And he says to me, my dad's the purest man I know. I know my dad like nobody else in the world. My dad is the finest, godliest man in the world. He's the same man on Sundays as Saturday night. He adores my mom's socks off. He treats my mom like she's the most important person that ever lived. The older she gets, the more beautiful she is to my dad. And I'll end this with a little parable because, Jesus always made his greatest points with little simple stories. And I'll leave you with the little simple stories. You ponder that question. What would you do? What would you change? What would be different about your personal self? That part of you that nobody knows when the plane drops not 5,000 feet, but 35,000 feet. What is it about your personal self that you'd love to see God really rule and reign and own? The story's about a little girl. She was a little country girl, grew up like I grew up, kind of out there in dirty blue jeans and barefooted and running around in the outdoors and a very rural life. Didn't have much. But somewhere she got a little magazine. Somebody had dropped it on the side of the road, and she saw this lady in this beautiful set of cultured pearls. And she began to desire those pearls more than anything in her life. And she shared it with her mom and dad. She said, I would love those pearls for my birthday. And they said, darling, there's no way we could afford those. Well, she got herself a little babysitting job, and she started cleaning houses for people. And she made enough money to buy a little set of plastic pearls. They were maybe $5 or $10. And she wore those plastic pearls every day. She cherished those plastic pearls. They weren't the real thing, but they looked like the real thing. Her next birthday, her father walked into her room. He loved her so much, and she loved him. And he said, "Little princess, happy birthday." And she said, "Thank you, Dad." He said, "Do you trust your dad?" And she said, "Oh, Daddy, you know I trust you." And he said, "Let me have those plastic pearls." And she put her hand on those pearls, and she said, "Dad, why do you want my pearls?" He said, "I want to know if you trust me." And she said, "Dad, you know I trust you, but you can't have my plastic pearls." He waited another year. The next birthday, he walked in. He said, "Happy birthday, darling." She put her hand on her pearls. She said, "Dad," he said, "do you trust me?" She said, "Dad, you know I trust you." He said, "Let me have your plastic pearls." She said, "Dad, I can't do that." He waited for the next birthday, and he walked into her room. She knew it was coming. And with tears in her eyes, he said, "Do you trust me?" She said, "Daddy, I trust you." He said, "Will you give me the plastic pearls?" And she said, "Yes." And she took the plastic pearls off her neck, and she, trembling with her hand, put it in her daddy's hand. And as she put her plastic pearls in his hand, he reached down his pocket, and he opened up a box of real cultured pearls worth probably $2,000 or $3,000. He'd got himself a third job. He'd worked for a year to make enough money to buy those cultured pearls. He said, "Little princess, I've been waiting for 3 birthdays with these cultured pearls, but I wanted to know if you trusted your dad." And I think about our college days, and I look down at this plastic pearl. I've had literally tens of thousands of conversations with college students in front of the stage and backstage. And I've talked to students rich and poor, of all ethnic background, nationality, you name it, around this country, now around this world. And I find that over and over again, there's these students that I meet that have this incredible race to run, this fantastic race ahead of them with just awesome. I mean, life is just so incredibly great and challenging and difficult and fun and adventuresome. But they stay encumbered by guilt and by shame and by false guilt and by habits and by pornography and by the doggone body image and by stuff. There's just plastic pearls, and God steps into your life and he says, "Do you trust me? Do you really trust me?" Yeah, you go to Lipscomb. Yeah, it's probably one of the most wonderful universities in America, and it is. And the environment is just unbelievable. But do you really trust me? I want to know what your personal self is like. And you say, "Yes, I trust you." And he said, "Good, give me your plastic pearl." And I don't know what your plastic pearl is. I've had many throughout my life. But they're little encumbrances, little things that you just carry and you hold on to. Some little habit, some little idol, some little security blanket that you just don't want to let go of. For some of you, it's been dogging you for years. But God steps in and he says, "Do you trust me?" And so as we sing a worship song or two here, I'm going to ask somebody in here who perhaps God's been speaking to you for a while about your plastic pearl. And I'm just going to ask you to slip up here. And it may be one person, it may be 3,000. But as God moves in this arena, I'm going to ask you to consider, what is that little plastic pearl that you've been sneaking behind and clutching, and you know it ain't right. And you know it's not the person you want to walk down that aisle. You know it's not the man that little boy of yours wants to look at and see. And I'm going to ask you to take that pearl, and I'm going to ask you to place it, or toss it up on this platform. We're just going to turn this platform into worship and altar. I want somebody who's going to sing up here. Come stand up here. And when you come up here and you toss your little plastic pearl, I have a friend who's a jeweler, and he made a nail in his jewelry shop that looks a lot like the nail that crucified Christ, except his was a lot bigger. But this is a blacksmith spike. And on the back is my favorite Bible verse. It says, "I've been crucified with Christ. I've taken my plastic pearl and I put it on that cross, and I have crucified that for the purity of Christ that's filled my heart. It's no longer I who live now, but Christ who lives in me." You take this thing and just mark this moment when you drove your stake, when you drew a line in the sand from which you would never retreat, when you took that little habit, that little idol, whatever it was, and you tossed it, said, God, it's yours. I am done with everything in my life but you. I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer now I who live, but Christ who lives in me. Would you pray with me before we sing? This is your time. Just worship, talk to God, pray. If you need to go to class, feel free to go. If you need to be with God, come be with God. Bring your pearl if you'd like. Toss it on this altar. Faith.
To make a wretched treasure. How great the pain of searing loss. The Father turns his face away as wounds which mar the chosen one bring many sons to glory. Behold the man upon the cross, my sin upon his shoulders. Ashamed, I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything. No gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, his death and resurrection. Why should I gain from his reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart. His wounds have paid my ransom.
But this I know with all my heart. His wounds have paid my ransom.
I need thee every hour, most gracious Lord. No tender voice like thine can peace afford. I need Temptations lose their power when thou art high. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour, in joy or pain. Come quickly and abide, or life is vain. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour, most holy one. Oh, make me thine indeed, thou blessed Son. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. The splendor of a king.